It is 5:30 p.m. and I will call to order the July 22, 2019 meeting of the MISD Board of Trustees. Thank you all for coming. Agenda item number 1 is a moment of silence followed by the pledge to the U.S. flag and Texas flag. If you please join me. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. All right, thanks again for everyone for coming. It is an important evening for the district tonight. Thank you for being here. Agenda item number 2, presentations, recognitions, award, announcements. 2A, Permian Basin Workforce Development Board. Ms. Fry, welcome.
Thank you. President Davis, board members, Mr. Reddick. Thank you for allowing me to come before you to recognize the efforts and contributions of the Permian Basin Workforce Development Board. Back in August of 2018, we started developing the plan for what would become the Henderson Child Care Center to serve employees of Midland ISD and to increase teacher retention. During the planning process, staff at the Permian Basin Workforce Development Board identified this as a project aligned to their goal of increasing child care spaces for infants and toddlers in the community. They've supported the project by purchasing materials and curriculum and by providing technical assistance through their mentoring staff. The Permian Basin Workforce Development Board provided furniture and supplies for all 5 classrooms at Henderson that amounted to over $40,000. In addition to that, they dedicated over 200 hours of mentoring and support that has and is still continuing. They're not finished with us yet. As a result of this collaboration between the Permian Basin Workforce Board and the Midland ISD Child Care Team, Henderson Child Care Center received no citations from our state licensing visit in June, and we will open as a 4-star Rising Star Center when we open August 1st. Although Chief Executive Officer Willie Taylor and the Operating Officer Gil Dickinson were not able to be here with us tonight, I would like to bring forward Patty Stewart, who is the Child Care Program Specialist, and Mindy Medanich. She is our Texas Rising Star Mentor at both the Henderson and the Coleman Centers, and these are the ladies who have put in the 200 hours, helping us with everything from assembling baby beds. Do you know how many parts are in a baby bed? Mindy does. Tricycles, all kinds of things, putting up bulletin boards and making sure we have all of the rules met to make us an exemplary child care program.
Thank you.
And on behalf of the Workforce Board, I just hope that this isn't the last collaboration that we have with the ISD. I hope that it continues and we grow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the contribution, all the effort. Appreciate it very much. It's be most appreciated by all that will use it. Thank you. All right, next we'll have public forum. Agenda item 3, we have 5 speakers lined up to address us this evening. First speaker, Austin Booker, representing the Facility Master Planning Committee. Topic, bond package proposal. Ms. Booker, welcome.
Good evening. I just wanted to say that the Master Planning Committee has worked with the best interest of our future generations at heart. We genuinely believe the ideas that will be presented to you this evening are crucial to meet the demands of our district for the next several years. Thank you for everything.
This is okay. Thank you, Ms. Booker. Appreciate it. All right. Next. Courtney and Cole Lunsford, representing parents and students. Topic, bond proposal. Courtney and Cole, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Courtney Lunsford. This is my son, Cole. We are here tonight to show our support for the school bond. I was born and raised in Midland and a student at 3 of our elementary schools. I attended San Jacinto Junior High and graduated from Midland High School in 1998. I was a student at SJ 27 years ago, and at that time it was already over 40 years old. And my son will be starting 7th grade there in less than a month. While I can't wait for him to become an SJ Mustang, it's unfortunate that hardly any changes have been made in at least 27 years. Walking those halls for his student orientation was like stepping into a time warp. Nothing has changed other than a few newly painted walls done by staff and volunteers who want to help revitalize in the only way that they can. With the student capacity of around 850 at SJ and the enrollment this coming school year being at 1,000, I don't see how this is fair to our children or our teachers. I not only speak about SJ, but all of the secondary schools are old, crammed beyond capacity, and lack the security and technology that our children deserve. It feels as though we're stuck in the dark ages, and in order to have better schools and a better environment for our children, then I think that we have no choice but to get on board for the future of Midland. If this bond is placed on the November ballot, it is our duty as Midlanders to support the district with what is needed. Midland is not matching the rest of the state, and at this time, it's time to stop putting Band-Aids on everything. We absolutely need forward thinking, and I believe that it starts here. There are people who have children have no children at home or have already raised their families, and there are those who send their children to private schools in town who may never see the inside of one of our schools within MISD, but I feel as though it is up to all of us to make sure that all of the kids in Midland have better schools and schools that have enough room to accommodate all of them. It has always been discussed what is valuable below the ground here in Midland, and I think that it's time that we realize what is above ground here is just as valuable. Midland continues to grow at a rapid rate, and it's long overdue that our children can have a sense of safety and pride, which is what they deserve and what will provide a much better learning environment for years to come. And Cole just wants to add a few things to what I've said.
I just wanted to say that I'm excited to start junior high, although it will be hard to be in class sizes that triple what I had as a student at Highlander. I know that this bond won't create a bigger and better junior high for me and my friends, but it will provide us with a new high school to attend in a few years and bigger, better schools for our younger siblings in the future of Midland. I'm only 12 years old. I can't vote, so all I can do is stand here and tell you how much the youth of Midland needs this, and it would be really cool if you would put this bond on the ballot so that the city of Midland can vote to do this for us, for the future of our city. Thank you for your time.
Courtney and Cole, thank you. Our next speaker, Patrick Payton, representing himself. Topic, bond proposal. Mr. Payton, welcome.
I think Cole should run for mayor. I just want to take an opportunity to thank you for the work you've done. Mr. Davis, we've been in more meetings, I think, than I've been with my family. And so I want to thank you for the time that you've spent. And really my endorsement here this evening is to endorse the work that the committee has done. They have met tirelessly. They have answered many, many questions. They have gone back and answered questions we've asked over and over and over again. And really, I'm most excited for what they're asking you regarding trust. And I know at some point in this presentation, as I was looking through the packet, your willingness as a board to appoint some kind of citizens committee to look over this bond, to look over what happens, is a testament to you also shifting the paradigms of this community related to trust. And so I want to thank you for that consideration as well. I want to thank everyone who's been involved in the committee for, I think, 18 months or maybe longer that these committees have been meeting. You face perhaps the most historic decision in the last 50 years that this community is going to make. Even though I think there's some important issues coming up in November, I want to encourage you in what you're about to do. I want to encourage you in the ongoing thinking process. And I just want to continue to encourage you in how you are challenging us to shift the paradigms about what we expect, to repeat what was just said, that we would be world famous above ground for as famous as we are below the ground. Thank you so much for your time, and I give you my best.
Thank you, Mr. Payton. Our next speaker, Olivia Ortiz, representing MISD parents. Topic, the bond. Ms. Ortiz, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Olivia Ortiz, and my husband Jose and I are the parents of 4 children currently enrolled in MISD. Our oldest daughter will be a senior this year and attends Lee High School. Our second daughter will be in 8th grade and attends Abel Junior High. And our 2 youngest daughters will be in 4th and 5th grade, and they attend Scarborough Elementary School. I wanted to ask that the school board move forward with the recommendation by the Master Planning Committee in favor of the bond proposal. There are many positive and necessary items that the bond will address, such as the construction of a new high school, renovation to the existing junior high campuses, and the reconfiguration of the middle schools, which is so very important as a former public school educator. I also wanted to, however, discuss and speak directly about the security and safety upgrades that the bond would support. I'd like to share with you the 3 different security features currently in place at the 3 different campuses my daughters attend. At Scarborough, the security measures in place consist of limited access doors and doorbell entry with a camera at the front doors. This is a fairly new upgrade that took place because of the last bond measure that passed. I, as a parent, am very thankful for this security measure. Unfortunately, at this time, Abel and Lee do not have the same safety features in place. I would like to see all campuses throughout the MISD equipped with the same safety features to protect our children, creating a safe learning environment with up-to-date fencing and all the safety measures that we as a community can provide for our children. In the world that we live in, we have to put these measures in so that we can ensure the safety of our children. So I ask that you please support the recommendation from the Master Planning Committee. Thank you.
Ms. Ortiz, thank you. Our last speaker is Charlotte Hotchkiss. Topic, supporting bond. Ms. Hotchkiss, welcome.
Good evening. Thank y'all for letting me speak real quickly. I don't represent anyone, just for the record. I'm simply here because I believe in this, in what you're proposing. I've served for 6 years. This is my 6th year on the City Council. And through these years, we've looked at many companies bringing people in, and then we lose them. And one of the primary reasons we lose people is because of our public schools. It's so expensive to live here. They come here, they find a house, and then they find that the schools aren't what they wish. And as our mayor said, we want this to be a first-class city. It can't be a first-class city without first-class schools. So I want to applaud y'all for the hard work you've already put in, for the hard work that's coming. I want to applaud you for your foresightedness, for your hard, oh my word, the hours you have spent, the studies that you've undertaken. What you're attempting to do is to bring us forward, not dragging us one step at a time, but with a giant leap that's going to transform our school systems. And thank you for being farsighted and for being strong. I'm a public servant. Yours is not an easy job, and I applaud you for going forward. Thank you.
Ms. Hotchkiss, thank you very much. All right. For a public announcement, that concludes our public forum speakers, and we will conduct a public hearing, agenda item 4, on the optional flexible school day program application for the 2019-2020 school year. I don't anticipate that will take long, but the announcement is that we're going to move up agenda item 6C, which is a facilities update, the report from the committee, because I think that our greater than average number of people are here for that topic, and so we won't delay that any further. But first, we do need to take care of some official business on the public hearing. So it is 5:45 p.m., and I will call to order the public hearing on MISD's optional flexible school day program application for the 2019-2020 school year. Ms. Alanis, is there a presenting? Welcome.
Hi, good evening, President Davis, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Riddick. I am Claudia Alanis. I am the new Executive Director of Accountability and Student Information Systems, and I'm here this evening to present on the optional flexible school day program. So one of our board goals is to increase our graduation rate to 95% by the year 2020. The optional flexible school day program facilitates that process of improving our graduation rates, especially for our highly at-risk students who may have dropped out of school, are at risk of dropping out of school, or are behind in their core subject areas. On the next slide, before you see some significant improvements from 2017, 2018 to 2018, 2019. So this program has helped facilitate the process of increasing our graduation rates for highly at-risk students. We want to continue in those successes and the momentum that this program has brought. You have approved this program for the past 11 years that we have been utilizing this program, and we would like to continue in those successes. So at this time, if you have any questions for us or concerns, that I would be happy to address them.
I do. Is the student need, or so I can categorize it, is the students that are coming to you, is it because parents are working two different type of jobs or two long jobs, or how can you categorize overall students, the needs, the students that come to you for the flexibility of the program? What is it, socioeconomics, or what's your main customer?
So I know that we have a variance of students that are at risk, students who may be working, students who are parents, but I would also like to invite, if you would allow me, please, to invite our dropout prevention coordinator specialist, Ms. Mary Janicek, to address further the specific to that question. Okay. If I may invite her up.
Thank you. Could I have you repeat the question one more time just to make sure that I specifically address it correctly?
So we've seen an improvement, but in the program, is it through numbers that came, did the numbers change, higher numbers came in, or is it, well, that's a different question from what I asked originally, but what's your main customer? It comes in the sense of, is it because parents are working too long and it helps the student out with the schedule, or is it through socioeconomics that allows them to come in later because they got to watch a sibling, or?
Absolutely. And we see a number of circumstances, a variety across the board in terms of the unique situations for why they may need a more flexible schedule. And one of those being socioeconomic status. That is the most common reason that we see, and the fact that they are either supervising younger siblings while their parents are working, or they themselves may be the primary breadwinner for their household. And for those students, we need a more customized schedule to fit their needs.
Great. I mean, I'm great that you guys are, the number has moved up. It's good to see, positive tracking that. Because when I grew up, I was in that circumstance. So I like, it really touches my heart to see that improved a lot. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have seen that this program has been working and has gained success, so thank you very much. Is there any other questions or concerns that I might be able to?
All right. Thank you very much. Anyone to come forward as part of the public hearing and have any comments on this particular topic? All right. Seeing no one come forward, we will conclude the hearing at 5:50 p.m. And as I mentioned, we'll move up agenda item 6C, which is our facilities update agenda item, specifically the Facility Master Planning Committee report. Mr. Scott, welcome.
On your agenda, it says that Jay Edwards is going to present this. If you don't like what you hear, 1-800-JAY-EDWARDS is who you need to get in touch with. If you do like it, my name is Ronnie Scott. I think I know most of you and appreciate you giving us the opportunity to present the results of the committee. I've got 41 slides. 8 are covers or dividers, so I've got 33. It's going to take just a minute to go through this. Please feel free to stop me and ask questions as we go.
Mr. Scott, can I ask you to lean in a little closer to the microphone so everyone can hear you more clearly? Thank you.
Absolutely. As was documented in the paper yesterday, the committee recommends the board bring a $569 million bond forward in November of this year. A number that big is difficult. It was difficult for us to arrive at that. That's part of the reason it took 18 months for the committee to complete its work. If proposed and approved, or if you choose to approve the whole amount and put it on the bond, on the ballot, it will be 3.5 times larger than any other approved bond in the history of Midland. So this is not insignificant. Our recommendation was based on needs, not wants. All of us on the committee had certain things we wanted to see happen. We didn't all get what we wanted, and that certainly includes me. One of the things we tried to accomplish in this is we wanted all of our existing buildings to be fully utilized. We didn't want to retire buildings, and we didn't want to create excess capacity in buildings that just sat there. We didn't feel like that was fiscally responsible. What I would suggest is the committee is in consensus, and we'll describe how we got there. That was not easy to get there. Importantly, this is not a referendum on MISD, either for or against. We had several people come to us during the process of deliberation and say, let's do a $200 million bond or a $300 million bond, and let's see if MISD doesn't improve their performance, and then we'll do the rest of it. That's not what this is about. Our community needs seats for our students, so whether you're for or against MISD, the community needs the seats. That's what we're trying to accomplish, and it's no more complicated than that. Having said that, if the community were to approve this bond, it allows MISD to continue the good work that they've already started and has been in progress at least 2 years on implementing a system of great schools. And we think that this bond is complementary with that. This presentation also has several fiscal considerations. You know, the impact on taxpayers is important. For $569 million, we want to make sure that people are getting what they pay for, but they understand what the impact is going to be to them individually. And so we took some serious time to think about that, and we're going to talk to you about it here. Our purpose is outlined here. We wanted to provide capacity for the next 10 years for student enrollment growth. We also wanted to support the district's educational improvement efforts, and we wanted to develop a recommendation that could be presented to the board for its consideration, and that's what we're doing tonight. There were a group of 39 individuals from across the community that got together. Some were from the school district, some were from the community. What I would suggest is that 36 of them are some of the coolest people you will ever meet. We'll let you decide who the other 3 were here just in a minute. Here's how the committee broke out. There are 20 people directly from the community, 5 MISD administrators or members, and then 14 from the board or the administration. You'll notice that more than half were community members not associated with the district. We thought that was important. We didn't have a leader per se. We did have two facilitators. Mr. Riggin from MISD facilitated about 75% of the meetings. Jay Edwards, principal in a local architectural firm, facilitated the other 25%. They both did an excellent job. They helped us get to consensus, help us deal with a lot of difficult issues. I am here not as a leader of the committee, just as a peer member. What I would suggest is, because of the diversity of background and opinions, you've heard the expression herding cats. There was some herding cats that went on, but if you look at the names on there, there are at least a half a dozen people that made this more herding lions and tigers than it did cats. And yet we got there. It took us a minute, but we got there. I think it's important to go over our objectives. We had three major objectives. They're in red, the red bullets. One of our objectives was to recommend appropriate secondary and pre-K capacity to carry the district through the next decade. Inside of that, a primary objective was to address secondary capacity, but the opportunity to address additional pre-K capacity came up late in the process, and we took advantage of that. Our second objective was to address other issues of importance. I noticed someone got up and talked about security. That was an issue of importance. Technology was important, and you'll see some of the other things that we addressed. And then finally, this is particularly important, I think, everywhere, but more so in Midland, perhaps. We wanted to do this in a fiscally responsible way, so we had to, again, consider costs, benefits, and taxpayer impact. Our process was this. We had 18 meetings spread over a year and a half. Not everyone could attend every meeting, but attendance was generally good. You'll notice a large gap in there. We'll talk about what drove that gap and some of the advantages that that gap actually created. We talk about consensus. A bond this big, as many issues and agendas that you have, it is difficult to reach consensus. We've shown here a grading scale, and at the end, each of us were asked to vote on several issues, one at a time, to gauge where we were at from a consensus standpoint. In general, the lower the number, the higher on the chart, the more you support it, all the way down to if you're an 8, you cannot support anything that's proposed. What was important is we didn't reach consensus at one meeting. We had several big issues. Number of high schools was one. Grade alignment, being 6 with middle grade or 6 with elementary. High school alignment, 9th as standalone, 9th with the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. Those were important issues. The size of the bond was an important issue. And what we did is we took each of those issues one at a time, not in one meeting, but in 3, and solicited input from all the committee members and asked for their consensus or their score. This allowed people to voice their concerns, to go home and think about their concerns, to come back and ask new questions. If you missed all 3 meetings, you didn't get a voice in consensus. But if you made any of those 3, you got a full voice. And I feel like our committee, everyone had the opportunity to have a full voice. And what I will assure you is we are bringing forward a consensus recommendation of the committee, and I think that will be important to you. The committee did a lot of homework. There are a list of items listed here, things that we looked at. I'll give you some examples specifically, but you can look through them from the number of students we might have in the future to the age and conditions of existing buildings to other issues that are listed here. We took the time to study those. This was a particular issue that we thought was important. If objective number 1 is to design a system or a series of buildings that will be here to address capacity for the next decade, you have to agree on what capacity is going to be. MISD provided us early on their projections. They were reasonably developed, but they were aggressive, and it encompassed a lot of children. So the committee, in the red line, in the first quarter of 2018, developed its own estimate of capacity. We worked with that for a while. 1 year later, in the first quarter of 2019, a professional demographer was hired. He came in and developed his own estimate. So the 2 estimates were developed independently. and you'll see how well that they track and they lay over. What you will notice is that we project growth of 2.5% over the next decade, 2.5% per year for the next decade. That is not terribly out of round of what we've experienced the last decade. In the last decade is around 2%, but we've had a couple of years of 4 or greater. You'll notice also that both projections tend to tail off in growth at the end of the period during the last half decade. And so this is not 2.5% forever. We feel comfortable with the capacity projections or the student membership projections that we have, and those are what we used. Some of the highlights, we took facility tours of many of our buildings with accent on secondary buildings, although we did go to Bunch Elementary and we had meetings over at Yarborough so we could get a flavor for what new buildings look like. What we found on a square foot weighted basis is the average age of our secondary schools is 50 years. We don't know precisely what they were designed for, but in general, buildings back then were designed to last 50 to 60 years, and we are right there. You'll see the number of maintenance items that are outstanding that go with having an old fleet of buildings. You'll also see we have a large number of portable buildings that are in use on the secondary campuses. There were some site constraints, just the number of students you're trying to run through a plant and a footprint. Those were particularly apparent at Midland High and San Jacinto Junior High. Some of the statistics we came up with that were provided for us. MISD has added approximately 1,400 students over the last 3 years. Enrollment is projected to increase 8,600 students over the next decade. That's a third increase. That's a big number, and that's one of the reasons we stopped and said, do we believe that number? I think we do now. But as we'll talk about, we might be a little bit off. It's an inexact science. If we have over-projected, then we're going to have capacity for 9, 10, 11, 12 years. If we've under-projected, it might be 7, 8, or 9 years. Interestingly, in August of this year, when school starts next month, every secondary campus is expected to have more students than its legacy capacity. And when we talk about legacy capacity, we exclude the portable buildings, but they're going to have more students than they've been designed and or upgraded for. The last comprehensive high school built in Midland was 58 years ago. If we passed a bond in November, by the time we occupy our next new high school, that building will be 60 years old or over 60. That's Midland Lee. The last junior high we built was 26 years ago. That was Abel. And if you don't build buildings in a time of growth, which we've had times of growth and a little contraction, but not much over the last 50 years, you end up having a bond that's $500 million. That's what we're faced with. If we implement the bond as proposed, the average, again, weighted average square foot age of our buildings will drop from 50 years to 28. We think that's a pretty significant change. Absent the bond, we will continue to add portable classrooms. We're not suggesting we will get rid of every portable classroom if we pass the bond, but we certainly will get rid of most. I referenced that there was a pre-K issue that came up late in the process. It was a gift from the Texas State Legislature. They gave us 2. We currently have 800 pre-K students and don't have good capacity for others. Thank you. We feel like this bond will create another 1,200 seats for eligible 3- and 4-year-olds. We're pretty excited about that. And the sentence at the bottom is important. We think pre-K education is one of the most important things that you can do to improve educational outcomes in a community, and the Texas Legislature feels the same way. This bond will help us address that. So here are our recommendations. We said it once, but we recommend a $569 million bond be placed on the ballot in November of this year. That is a clear, unambiguous statement of our recommendation. After examining the facilities and the data, we recommend to expand capacity. You'll see that this bond will add 4,700 seats, a chunk of them in secondary, some in pre-K. It will also upgrade many of our other facilities and address technology, security, and safety concerns as well. We'll talk a little bit more about those in a moment. So to the meat of the recommendation, We recommend that Midland move to 3 comprehensive high schools. That would cause, to achieve that would cause us to build 2 new high schools. Each high school would have a capacity of 2,400 students, and it would serve grades 9 through 12. Notionally, we'd have 1 new high school located on the east side of town. You've, with foresight, made a purchase of land that would house a high school there. In a similar way, you previously purchased land on the west side of town, and so notionally there would be a new high school on the west. As part of the bond that we proposed, you would renovate and expand the existing Lehigh site. We're not going to call it the Lehigh campus. It may stay Lehigh, or it may be renamed. But we would also make it a 2,400-seat high school, and it would be 9th through 12th comprehensive. And, well, I knocked one of them over. Let's see if I can do that twice. I think they're wanting me to take a drink of water, but I'm just obstinate enough I'm not going to. So Lee will be upgraded. 9th graders will be moved on. We will have to upgrade things like the libraries, the cafeteria, and infrastructure such as that. We'll also work on the kitchen there. This is important. We spent a lot of time on this, and in retrospect, we wasted a lot of time on this. The committee is not recommending a name for any of these 3 high schools. That's important, and our recommendation would be to you that you don't name them until after the election, so that we don't get bogged down in the minutiae of what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to get 3 new high schools, names to follow. For purposes of the rest of my discussion, I'll just refer to Midland West, a new high school to the west, Midland East, a new high school to the east, and we'll just call the existing Lee site Midland Central. We recommend continuing to use Midland High School, but not at the Midland High School site, but not as a high school. We would break it into 2 separate campuses. The first would be a comprehensive middle school, and that would be accomplished by moving SJ into part of Midland High. SJ is notionally our smallest junior high today. It would become our largest, having over 1,100 seats if we chose to do that. The board may want to consider making it a fine arts school to take advantage of some of the fine arts students coming out of Bowie Elementary. It would become a feeder, but that'll be the board's decision, not ours. We also would create a new 6th through 12th academy. There are a lot of things that academy could become. This academy is not extra seats. They are needed to meet capacity. It would have about 100 students per grade, so ultimately would have about 700 students. And so you can see between a repurposed or moved SJ and this academy, you'd have about 1,800 students at the existing Midland High site. The academy would allow MISD to continue its system of great schools implementation. We're not suggesting precisely what that academy would be. We think MISD, in conjunction with the community, would decide. It could be CTE, and that is career and technical education. It could be a young men's academy. We're going to have a young women's. For those that think we need a young men's, that's possibly where it could be. Or it could be a petroleum academy, or it could actually be a comprehensive middle school on its own. We recommend converting the remaining junior highs, Abel, Alamo, and Goddard, and we recommend that we convert them to 6th through 8th grade middle schools. That would be consistent with what we just recommended for SJ. We also recommend converting the 2 existing freshman sites, Lee Freshman High School and Midland Freshman High School, into comprehensive middle schools. That would give us 6 comprehensive middle schools serving 6th through 8th grade. That is up from 4 7th and 8th grade junior highs today. One of the big discussion items that we had was, is it advantageous to move 6th graders onto a middle school campus? We believe that it is. There are several reasons for that. One is we've talked about, but if you move the 6th graders off your elementary campuses, you create additional capacity on each of the elementary campuses, and that's what we would use to house the pre-K. So the pre-K capacity essentially comes to us free. We also think that converting 6 to 8 puts us in alignment with state requirements. There are differences in teacher certification for secondary specialist versus, as you gentlemen are aware, versus elementary generalist. This would allow us to follow the rest of the state and take advantage of teacher training that is ongoing in the state. Finally, we would convert the existing freshman schools to middle schools. The advantage of doing that is, in this bond, we do not have to create or construct any new middle schools. We will use our existing buildings to end up with 6 comprehensive middle schools. Also, an important consideration, it fully utilizes all of our buildings, which was important to us. Appreciate the comments a while ago on safety. We are proposing upgrading safety and security at each of the secondary campuses. That costs $15 million. We also recommended upgrading technology at each campus. That costs $18, so the 2 line items here are $33 million. If you look back on the bottom right of the previous page, you'll see those costs were $440, followed by the junior highs. In addition, we recommended performing major capital requirements at the secondary campuses to improve operational efficiencies. The next statement is somewhat confusing. You gentlemen will get it because you're so in tune with this. But as you're aware, 30% of our M&O funds go to the state in the form of recapture. There are a few items that can be charged either to M&O or INS, being capital. There's about $11 million of activity that we would recommend moving from M&O to INS so that we can save that 30%, effectively keep it all in Midland versus sending it to Midland or to Austin. And finally, for a cost of $5 million, much of which would be spent anyway, we recommend repurposing the existing SJ campus and moving the Young Winds Leadership Academy there. That academy has been discussed at length in prior meetings, so we won't go over it today, but suffice to say it's had great success in the state of Texas, and we're excited to bring it to Midland. We recommend the following athletic and site improvements. I'll let you read those. I won't go over them, but I will highlight 2 things. At a cost of $15 million, it represents less than 3% of the cost of the bond. The other thing is one I underlined at the last, community and district benefits. We can do some things that will help our water usage and our maintenance at some of the campuses, secondary campuses. Artificial turf improves student safety, we feel like. And importantly, it will give lighted tracks that our community can use for walking in various parts of town. We think that's part of the quality of life initiative that's ongoing in Midland now. Total investment, $15 million. So here's a summary. As part of the 10-year facility master plan, we recommend that you call a bond November of this year. I won't walk through all of those because we've just gone to it, but effectively it gets us to 3 high schools, 6 comprehensive middle schools, and some schools of choice. It addresses safety and security and technology, and does a moderate amount of athletic and landscaping. Here's a line item, broadly so. The same number's on there twice, $569 million. In the green is the sum of the items above it. You'll see what it costs to build a new high school. 2,400 students cost $171 million. These high schools are designed initially to house 2,400 students each. It is our understanding, and we believe this to be true, that the infrastructure, cafeterias, locker rooms, library, that sort of thing, will be sized to allow these high schools to be expanded up to 2,900 students each at a fairly inexpensive cost. The third line item is upgrade Lee High School for 9th grade, also adds some capacity. This is an important one. There's an important number there. It sure looks like a big number. That's part of bringing 9th graders on, part of adding capacity, part of working cafeteria and kitchen. But we often design buildings to have a 50 or 60-year life. Lee's been here 60 years. You can refurb it and expand its capacity for about half the cost, slightly over half the cost of a new high school. That's actually a pretty good savings, and we think we're going to give ourselves several more decades of use out of that site. You can see your way clear to where Lee could, having been designed for 50 years, make it 80 or 90 or even 100 years. We think that's a good use of taxpayer dollars. At the bottom, we put a grouping just so you can see the various percentages. New construction accounts for 60% of the bond, but make no mistake, the other 30% is necessary for capacity. Again, that includes some of the expansions and some of the upgrades that we would have other places. So 90% is directed towards our primary mission. When all is said and done, this is what we would have. We would have 3 comprehensive 9th through 12th high schools, Midland East, Midland West, Midland Central. Y'all will name those. We would have 6 comprehensive middle schools, 6th through 8th grade, no new construction. ABIL would be there, Alamo, Goddard, SJ. We also what we call the Southeast Middle School, which would be on the site of the current Midland freshman, and the Northeast Middle School, which would be on the site of currently freshmen. There would be several schools of choice and specialty schools. The first 4 will all be operated by Midland Independent School District, Early College High School, Coleman High School, the Young Women's Leadership Academy, and the new academy that would be at Midland High. We included the last 4 on here being IDEA, not to be controversial or to create any issue, but IDEA is part of the capacity solution. If IDEA was not coming, our bond would be bigger, and we're going to talk to you about that. So we need those seats, and we wanted to mention that they will be here. So what does it cost an average taxpayer, and why should we do something this big now? Let's go through that with physical considerations. We've got several bullet points there. I won't go over the bullet points now, but I'll go over them individually beginning on the next slide. First are the impacts of inflation on construction costs. I don't think it would be too controversial to suggest that we're seeing construction inflation of 5% a year. If you were to wait on this bond 5 years, 5 is an arbitrary number. With that level of inflation, it would cost us another $138 million. If you wait on this bond 1 year, that's $25 million. Wait on it 6 months, that's $13 million. The clock ticks in a place where you have high construction inflation. The next thing, and we're going to show you the impacts of this in a bit, but we are near record low interest rates. We think that's an important source of taxpayer savings that we should take advantage of while it is here. Interest rates are forecast to stay at near record lows over the period the bonds will be issued. People may or may not be aware, if you pass a bond in November, you will not issue all the bonds immediately or even in the next year. You typically issue them over the life of the construction project. That will probably be over about 4 years. Over my lifetime, interest rates have averaged about 3% higher than where they currently are. If you believe that things revert to the mean, and I do, that doesn't mean I'm right, but if interest rates were to go back up 3% to a historic average, that would cost us another $150 to $240 million of interest rates over the life of the bond, depending on how long you amortize them. We think that's a savings that the taxpayer will appreciate by putting bonds out today. The last thing is a point I won't dwell on. It's important. It's complicated to understand, but all of us have a sense of a number. What I have found is the number is the same, but the value of it is different. The cost of a $500 million bond at 3% or 4%, say 4.5% today, versus a cost of a $500 million bond at 7.5% or 8% 11 years ago is significantly different. A $500 million bond today looks like a $350 million bond a decade ago. When you throw in mineral valuations, and we'll talk about those in a second, a $500 million bond today looks like a $200 million bond 12 or 15 years ago. Complicated point, but the thing is, as a community, we need not to fixate on a number because it is a moving number. Other macro circumstances change the value of that number. The point I wanted to make here is inflation is real, and we are at low interest rates. We perhaps want to take advantage of that. The next thing is mineral and commercial valuations are an all-time high. We think that the tax base that this will be charged over is about $36 billion, give or take $1 billion. I can remember not very many years ago when our tax base for the school district was half that. What does that mean? It means that homeowners and small business owners are going to pay less now than they would have at a time when mineral valuations were less. and they'll pay less now than they would if mineral valuations peak and begin to drop in the future. Given valuations as we anticipate they will come out this fall, homeowners and apartment dwellers would pay less than half of the cost of this bond. Who pays for the other half? Minerals and commercial business. That ratio changes. It's high now, arguably at one of the highest points that it's been. We think we should take advantage of that. This is important as well. Recent legislation has given us a significant opportunity to lessen the impact of the bond on local taxpayers. We're going to show you some numbers here in a minute that are pretty astonishing. We're not the only district in the state that's figured this out. I expect there to be a mini construction boom in schools across the state. I think we are positioned better than most through your foresight, and we will talk about that. The property tax rollback, for lack of a better term, will save the average taxpayer 65 to 95% on increased taxes versus what it would have been in April of this year before they impacted the law. As we're going to show you, these savings are absolutely astounding, and they are real. They may not be permanent, so we should take advantage of them while we can. Finally, and I have a reason for including this slide, and I'll make it clear in a moment. While the committee was developing its recommendations, a parallel separate effort in the form of a public-private partnership was also underway, and it was designed to complement and complete our overall facility plan. Our plan would look different had that partnership not been implemented. The committee did not implement it, but we were aware of it, and we took advantage of it. This partnership continues the successful tradition of public-private partnerships that have been implemented by the hospital district, the city of Midland, and Midland College. It involves philanthropy, business, and MISD working together to bring a highly qualified public charter school to Midland. The charter school will result in up to 10,000 new seats being built in Midland and Odessa. You've seen in the paper that the private side of the partnership, which are primarily foundations and the Permian Strategic Partnership, contributed approximately $55 million in order to make this partnership a reality. What you don't see in the paper, and it's just because it wasn't an oversight, it just wasn't widely publicized, is that this partnership and the seats that it's going to bring are going to save taxpayers $150 to $175 million that they would otherwise have had to spend to build the seats that Idea Charter School is going to build. We think this partnership is an important piece in the development of the most fiscally responsible plan we could develop to address facility needs. Whether you're for Idea or against Idea, whether Idea comes in district or out of district, the seats are coming. To the extent that they are occupied, they are going to save taxpayers capital and startup cost through this public-private partnership. We think this is the largest public-private partnership in the region. So when you tie all this together, what does it cost a taxpayer? Before we go to that slide, I want to say something. I've worked with many of you through many years, often in an adversarial position. I and others have called for leadership, planning, and coordination from the school board. Sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't, and we're quick to criticize when we don't. We got it here, and we need to point it out to the community, and we need to thank you. If you go back and look, there was a several-month gap in the facilities committee's meeting cadence. Several things happened in that gap. One is, in the fourth quarter of last year, it became obvious that the state of Texas was going to consider property tax reform as it relates to school finance. As a board, you had the foresight to suggest that we delay the committee until that legislation became clear. We're going to show you how wise that decision was, because now we know what the state did, and it is phenomenal for Midland. That was not the only thing you did, though. Again, had the Idea Charter School not come into play, we would have had to build seats for that. MISD was part of the partnership that brought Idea here, and in fact, it will be an in-district MISD Idea partnership that will start up first. That contract was not signed until this month. Had that contract not been signed, we would have had a different answer for you today. We think you showed great wisdom and patience in letting that contract evolve. And so I'd point those two things out. The legislature passed property tax relief 60 days ago. a lot of districts will bring a bond forward. You had us prepared to bring a well-thought-out, well-coordinated, well-planned bond forward when the legislature acted. We needed idea seats, whether the taxpayer paid for them or somebody else did. You had the foresight to let that agreement play out before the committee finished what it was going to do. The last thing you did, and it wasn't the last thing, but certainly is another important thing, is when we finished our work, or more precisely, when we stopped our work in the fall, we did not have a good sense of consensus in the committee. We had done a tremendous amount of foundational work. We had looked at a lot of numbers, had a lot of ideas, bounced a lot of plans around, but we were not in consensus. You're allowing the committee several extra months, which we know was perhaps not a popular decision at the time, and looked like potentially an abdication of leadership was exactly the opposite of that. The fact that you gave this committee 18 months, the fact that you called time out in the middle, allowed us to take advantage of the Texas legislature. It allowed us to take advantage of a public-private partnership, and allowed me to stand here today and say our committee is in consensus, which I would not have been able to do 7 or 8 months ago. I'm quick to criticize when I don't see leadership and I don't see planning. This is as good as I've ever seen, and I think you gentlemen should be complimented and thanked for that. Now, you giveth and you taketh away. You're still trying to increase our taxes. We're not happy about that. Let's look how much our taxes are going to increase with a $569 million bond. Several numbers on here. I tried to make it as simple as I could. We took a $300,000 house, an average house in Midland, just below the median price, and we said we're going to put a $569 million bond in front of the voters. How much do you think that will cost the owner of a $300,000 house? If you look in green, $10. This bond, counting all the factors we just talked about, will increase the average homeowner in Midland's tax rate $10 a year, $1 a month. That's pretty astounding. $1 a month. And again, part of that were circumstances out of our control, but part of it was you giving us the time to wait for things to fall into place. That's the impact. Now, these numbers are preliminary. The number might be $20 a year. Okay. It might be $2 a month. That's okay. The other point I wanted to make on this, though, is our belief is bond duration matters. Duration is perhaps the wrong term. Amortization period is perhaps the right term. And so we wanted just to show you some numbers. If you look to the right, you'll see the left is 25-year amortization, costs an average homeowner $10 a year. If you reduce that to 15 years, it costs the average homeowner still less than $100 a year of increase. And if you look at the bottom, if we go 15 years instead of 25, we will save 10 years on the bond. We will pay it off 10 years more quickly, and that would save over $200 million in interest. So for an incremental cost of $86 a year to the average taxpayer in Midland, we can save $200 million of interest. To be clear, the committee is not recommending a specific bond amortization period, but we are recommending you give consideration to that. Very often in public forums and public entities, they take what the bond holder or the bond underwriter recommends. Generally, that will be 25 years. That may be what you come up with. We would recommend you look at something shorter. Let's pay for our own bills ourselves and let's let our children pay for theirs. And so that's why we'd like to consider something below 25. When you go to the bond underwriters, they're going to say, go to 25, and if you have some extra cash, then pay it down. We've seen that work a couple of times. We've also seen that not work many times, and so if you have the courage to go with 15 years, you're signing up and you now have the will to pay for it in that time. That will be your decision, but we wanted to make you and the community aware you're not going to have a big tax increase here. I want to show you one more group of numbers. Because it is not just the state legislature that rode in on a white horse and made things happen for us. It was some of the other things, trying to get ahead of construction cost inflation, trying to use mineral valuations at a record high, trying to use low interest rates. And so on the next page, the numbers at the top in green are repeated. The numbers are in bottom if you exclude what the legislature did for us. And so you'll see in blue, even excluding the impacts of the state legislature, high mineral valuations, low interest rates, using the public-private partnership, a $569 million bond would only increase the average homeowner's taxes by $182 a year. That's a historic low for us, I think. If you did that over 15 years, it's 260 or 267. The real number is 96. Now, I want to qualify that just a little bit. We could be off. We don't have final valuations, and valuations will change year on year. Taxpayer, instead of 96, could go up 100 or 150. They also could go up 70 or 80. Numbers will be finalized. You'll check the numbers, but the point is, this is as low as I've seen in my adult lifehood for the opportunity to put in a $500 million bond. We ought to take advantage of that. I have a couple pages of closing remarks. By the time construction of the new buildings is completed under the proposed bond, it will have been over 60 years since Midland built a new comprehensive high school, and over 30 years since it built a new junior high. That's not a bad thing. I think what it speaks to is we don't overbuild, and that's why we have one of the lowest school tax rates in the state of Texas. This will change that, but not much. We get a lot out of our buildings. We run on them hard, we run on them long. At some point, growth outstrips that, though, and you need to add seats. Once approved, it will actually take about 4 years for construction, a little bit over, but 5 years to be fully occupied to implement the attached plan. The longer we wait to do this, the more seats we may need, and the greater the cost will be. 6 decades ago, Midland as a community and through its school leaders positioned Midland extraordinarily well for the future. They built Robert Lee. That was a nice high school, and it served us for many years along with Midland High. In a similar way, we think MISD and a committee of citizens, philanthropy, and business, counting the public-private partnership, have come together now to develop a thoughtful, coordinated plan based upon needs, not wants. We think this plan incorporates important taxpayer considerations, and when you look at the amount we're asking our taxpayers to bear on $1 per month or $1 per year, it is pretty low. Finally, the committee understands that pursuing a bond is only one step in many necessary steps to improve the district's academic performance. I would not be true to myself if I didn't make the next point. You're probably not all that happy about it, but I'll make it anyway. If this bond is approved, it will no way relieve MISD of its obligations to improve our academic performance. Our academic performance must be improved. We are very supportive of this bond, very supportive. But we're not giving you a free pass. We expect our academic performance to improve. If anything, passage of this bond would raise the community and the committee's expectations of improved academic performance. We do recommend, and we're going to ask you to consider it, you will decide the function and whether you do it or not, that the school board consider establishing a community oversight committee, possibly including but not limited to members of the facility committee, to stay in touch with project implementation and provide scheduled reports to the community at large of progress and deviations from the plan. Basically, we recommend you be as transparent as you can by having a community group that is visiting with you, looking at the project, and feeding back to the community. Finally, the committee appreciates the opportunity to work with the district on such a historic undertaking, and through the consensus process previously described, we submit this proposal for your consideration. Thank you for your leadership. I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. I've criticized it in the past. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for the opportunity for the community to consider this. You have our recommendation. We'll entertain some questions from the board.
Board questions for Mr. Scott?
Yeah, I have,
There you go.
Yeah, I guess a couple of questions based off of your presentation, and I appreciate the hard work that the committee has brought forth and brought to the board. I know there was a lot of hours and a lot of discussions during that time, but you made a comment, I guess, on the idea of being a relief, I guess, for the district from a student standpoint of the numbers. You quoted the $150 million to $180 million that the district would save. So my question is, if you're saying there's 10,000 seats between Odessa and Midland, I'm just going to grab a number and say 5,000 for Midland, that the possibility of us losing those students to IDEA. That also impacts the district from a standpoint, just asking the question, does that also impact the district based on how much money that we're already currently sending to the state?
You're right, you will get less return from the state as those students move to IDEA, if those students move to IDEA. The notion of the savings of 150 to 180 million are capital costs that we would have to have borne otherwise, and also startup costs that we would have to have borne. So we're going to lose operating costs as the students move over to IDEA, but we're going to save the capital costs on day one. I'm not sure if I answered your question, Tommy.
So I guess on top of that, to say over a 10-year period, the water or the weighted attended daily average that the district wouldn't be getting, that's going to add up probably that amount of money or more over a 10-year period over the 5,000 students.
You're exactly right. The converse to that is MISD is going to have to educate fewer kids because they'll be being educated by somebody else. So the reimbursement to MISD will be lower than it otherwise would have, but your student count will be lower than it otherwise would have as well, by about 6,000 students.
Okay. I guess one final question. I know the committee looked at two different scenarios as far as high schools, whether it's 2 or 3 high schools based on the committee, on what the committee chose to go with. But I guess the question would be, when it was anticipated that we were going to go with 3 high schools, and then was the committee aware when this was all decided that IDEA was going to be coming in and taking away the number of students that we're currently talking about?
Yeah, let me answer that in 2 ways. We were absolutely aware IDEA was coming. We think
you were aware of the committee, because the committee was aware.
The committee was aware. IDEA was coming. If you go back and look at Mr. Riggins' spreadsheets last fall, he had unnamed charter school adding students. We refined that estimate as time went on, but IDEA or an IDEA equivalent has been part of the committee's planning during effectively the whole time. The second thing I would answer, though, is 2 versus 3, because that was not driven as much by IDEA as it was other issues. There's not a unique solution. We don't pretend that we came up with a unique solution. I will offer a couple of comments on 3 versus 2. It's not all the comments, and they may not be satisfactory to you, but it's an important issue. Other people in the community have asked us about 3 versus 2 high schools. If you go look at our high school count in the new situation, 3 comprehensive high schools, we're going to have 2,400 students per campus, or 7,200 students when they're fully at capacity. As I mentioned, they're going to be designed to have infrastructure for about 2,900 students. So you could come back for presumably less than $20 million per campus and get to 2,900 students. Among 3 high schools, that's 8,700 students. It would be hard to imagine 8,700 students in a 2 high school scenario, but you could. That's 4,300 students a high school. But if you did that, we've already mentioned you would need to move off Midland High. It can't support anything approaching even 3,000 students. Well, frankly, Lee couldn't approach that either. So if we went with a 2 high school solution, we'd probably be having to build 2 new high schools, and they would be 4,000 plus schools. Then we would have Lee vacant. We could move middle schools or something else in there, but one of our plans was to use every one of our existing buildings to the maximum extent possible. And so when you went through all the puzzle pieces of trying to put this together, you can come up with a solution where you use all your buildings, but the 3 high school versus 2 makes things fit significantly better.
Okay, one last question, and I'll be quiet. Yes, still on. You know, again, we talk about the 2 versus the 3, and just, you know, for the record, and everybody know, I'm in support of our bond because I think it's well needed, and it's been a time coming. But from a standpoint of being supportive of a bond, even putting it on the ballot, to be transparent or to give the taxpayers an opportunity to vote, say, yeah, I support the bond, or having that same option of voting, do I want 2 or do I want 3 high schools?
That will be the board's decision whether they would bring it forward that way. I can't say how I'm
just asking, was it talked about as far as the committee, not...
We spent a lot of time, not a lot of time, we spent a little time talking about should we offer options on the bond. do this for $350 million, do this for $450 million, do 3 versus 2. We ultimately felt like that would be confusing to the community, that they were looking to us for a recommendation because we were the ones that were in the numbers and in the weeds and looked at all the details. We ultimately came up with the recommendation, correct or not, but to be clear, it was our recommendation that we do not have options on the bond, that it is a binary bond, yes or no.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Scott?
I have a more of a comment than a question, but in an agreement with you, a couple of different agreements, but I appreciate you publicly saying that there's been criticism for the board in the past, and we as I should say I as a board member, I really appreciate that because it shows your honesty and transparency to the community as to, it hasn't been an easy task, bringing proposals, bringing change, bringing the system of great schools, bringing Lone Star governance. None of that's been an easy change for Midland ISD. So I really appreciate that it is difficult work. So it's challenged everybody to come up with the best thing for our community, the community we live in. And so the other thing I wanted to say is that I'm in full agreement of your closing remark, the second statement, that this project in no way relieves Midland ISD of academic performance. And we've already stated that through Lone Star governance. But to me, that's the most important statement said tonight, that no matter what we're doing, our focus here is on academics to better our students. Student outcomes don't change till adult behavior changes. So we as a community must keep our eye on student outcomes. So as we start these projects, or as the conversation moves forward, our main goal has to continue to be on our academics, and otherwise we won't get the fulfillment of bringing new schools and so forth, and still having to deal with student outcomes. So I really want to thank the committee for all the hard work y'all done. I know it hasn't been easy, but it's amazing to be in a community that people care. The PSP partnership, that just say to people that there's people in this community that care deeply about the livelihood of Midland. And so I know people stand on one side of an issue or another, but at the end of the day, it's for the betterment of Midland. So, I think that group also. So, thank you, sir.
Mr. Scott, the level of commitment by the committee members was extraordinary. The level of work that they did was truly remarkable, but the most impressive thing is the end result of their work that you've presented today. We most certainly appreciate, and many of the committee members are here. On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for the remarkable work that you've done. I'm excited about your recommendation. I am confident that at next month's board meeting, we will call a November bond election regarding these matters. And thank you all very much for all the work that you did, that you've made this possible and brought this community together. Thank you very much.
Again, thanks to the board for your leadership, your planning, and your commitment. We appreciate the opportunity.
All right. It is 6:43 p.m., and I think we will take a short break to handle various matters arising from this report. Let's take a 10-minute break and reconvene at 6:53 p.m. Thank you very much. It's 6:56 p.m. and we are called back to order. Next on the agenda is our consent agenda items. 5A, board meeting minutes on page 21 of the packet. 5B, monthly financials, page 26. 5C, monthly expenditures, page 34. 5D, annual investment report, page 48. 5E, contracts over $100,000, page 80. 5F, amended performance contracts, Ben Milam International Academy and Reach Network, page 85. 5G, optional flexible school day program, application for 2019-2020, page 216. 5H, Texas Education Agency Secure Environment System and the TEA login submitters, page 236. 5I, the 2019-2020 Student Handbook, page 238. 5J, the 2019-2020 Student Code of Conduct, page 334. 5K, the Teen Court Agreement, page 386. 5L, Personnel Appointments, page 391. And 5M, Board Gifts, page 401. Board members, do any of those consent agenda items need to be pulled for any reason?
Personnel appointments, but I don't want to pull, but I do have a question just to.
All right, well, let's have them be deemed approved by consent and then let you ask your question now. Mr. Bailey, I presume?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
So, I don't know if I was confused or not, but our staffing, I saw the numbers, but it's for the actual number was like for the last year, what was finalized. How does this year looking for? Because by the time we have a board meeting, we'll be we'll be starting school.
So yes, sir. The information that was presented in the packet and also some of that same information was included in a story in the newspaper. Basically summed up the year 18-19, the contract year 18-19. That was all of the information that was presented. The reduction in the number of resignations and retirements and projections as well for next year. So we are currently a few days out from everyone coming back, and then we're looking at projecting for next year at 90%. We're doing everything we can to possibly get there. Still and when we say 90%, we're talking about a certified teacher in the classroom. So that's where those numbers come from. There will be other options that creative options that we'll have to utilize with some of the exemptions that we've been able to have approved by the board, as well as some long-term subs and retired teachers that might fill in temporarily.
Okay, I guess my disconnect was with the percentage and then the actual number from last year.
Okay.
And not seeing an actual number, but we won't get an actual number till.
Right, until we get closer to the first day. Yes, sir.
So, but it's, okay. Well, I'd like to applaud your department because it looks like there's been a significant improvement in that, and then, so we just applaud you for the efforts and continued work, and we'll look to an amazing year starting off well-staffed.
Thank you. And the department is working very hard. We still have a lot of work to do, so we'll keep at it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Since we're asking questions, will you just clarify, just for the public, Stephanie Carnett's resignation from Carver? That was confusing to some because obviously there's that transition, but just for our edification.
Yes. So Ms. Carnett is leaving the school district in her role as a contract employee of Midland ISD. However, she will still remain in the leadership role at Carver, but that's part of the transformation program and work that we're doing at Carver.
Will the same thing happen with the REACH program?
Yes, that's as well with some of the other leaders there.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Bailey? All right, thank you, Mr. Bailey. All right, moving on to our district reports. 6A, board goals. Our student goal 1.0, Mr. Jones, welcome.
Good evening, Board President Davis, Board of Trustees, Mr. Riddick. Before we jump into the board goals, we would like to take an opportunity to introduce some of our new team members that will be leading the work at our campuses, as well as leading some of the work in central office departments. I'd like to share with you, start with our executive directors of elementary education. We have 2 new members to the team. They are 2 of 3 that will be working very closely with our elementary principals. Team members, if you are here, please just stand and wave. We also have your picture up that I know you just love to show everyone. Nancy Parker will be one of our executive directors of elementary education. Nancy is coming to us from Lubbock ISD. We have Angie Aaron, who's been a member of our team for 16 years as a principal. She will be taking on an executive director of elementary role, and she's coming to us from Burnett. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Ms. Parker, welcome. Ms. Aaron, glad you're staying with us. Thank you.
We have one more executive director coming to the team because Monica Hernandez will be moving to De Zavala to become an assistant principal and take on that aspect of the work. Our new executive director of accountability and student information system is Claudia Alanis, and she's coming to us from South Texas, Edinburgh. Welcome to the team.
Ms. Linus, welcome. I'm sorry I butchered your last name earlier tonight. Welcome.
Getting into our elementary principals, just please stand if you're here. We do have a number of 1 or 2 individuals that could not be here due to Abbott training and maybe possibly some other obligations. Laura Devalier will be leading the work at Bunch, part of the REACH network with Shelley Haney, and she's coming to us from Goodrich ISD. And yes. Is she here? Yeah. All right.
Welcome.
Andra Jones will be leading the work at Franks. She was the assistant principal at Franks and will be taking on that role. Andra Jones. Maribel Hernandez could not be with us tonight, but she will be taking on the lead at Burnett, and she was also the assistant principal at that campus. Thank you. Tanya Sanchez will be leading the work at Great House. Tanya Sanchez will be joining the Great House team. She's coming to us from Bunch as an assistant principal. Brandon Thurston, coming to us from out of district, from Texarkana, will be leading the work at Houston. And Tina Brawley will be leading the work at Long, and she was the assistant principal at Emerson. Leticia Camarillo will be coming to us from Midland High School. She's been at Midland High School for a semester. Before that, Arlington ISD. She'll be leading the work at South. I think everyone knows Jennifer Seibert. Jennifer was leading the work at Abel, moved out to begin laying the foundation for the Young Women's Leadership Academy that we're opening at the Jones location. Judith Tarleton was an assistant principal at Lee High School. She will now be leading the work at Lee Freshman. Cindy Powles, previously assistant principal at Midland High School, will be leading the work at Abel, and she started when Jennifer moved over to start the work on Young Women's. So she's been at Abel and will be starting her the school year at Abel, leading that work. Paul Hidalgo will be leading the work at Alamo, took over that lead in the spring of late spring semester, and we're picking him up from Lee High School. Part of the REACH network under the leadership of Shelley Haney, Goddard, and Bunch. Brandy Copeland will be moving from Great House and leading the work at Goddard. And last but not least, we have Jessica Varner, who will be leading the work at San Jacinto, and she's coming to us from out of district. She's coming to us from Abilene ISD. These are our new members of our family. As far as instructional leadership is concerned, we will be looking to these individuals to make an impact on student performance.
Principals, welcome. We look forward to your leadership. Thank you for serving.
Board members, I would like to at this time share with you our goal 1, the percentage of students in grades kindergarten through 2nd grade who are reading on or above grade level on multiple measures. Those multiple measures include iStation and FMP will increase from 50% to 75% by the end of year 2020. The 18-19 data showed a combined 61% of students in K2 reading on or above grade level on multiple measures. Kindergarten students are showing 56% reading on or above grade level. First grade students are showing 61% reading on or above grade level. 2nd grade, 68%. Having an annual target for the end of school year 18-20, we established a 69%. Yes, this means that we are 8 points behind our annual target, and I believe overall that indicates a 1% increase from the previous year. I would also like to point out that if you look at the information from a cohort perspective, our kinder students, you look at them when they were kinder students in 18-19, they are now sitting at 61. That shows a 6% increase in the cohort and a first grade increase to the now 2nd grade cohort of a 7% increase. So we're definitely moving the needle and adding value to the cohort as they move up. You can also see a positive trend from 56% to 61% to 68%, that number is moving in the right direction. We did not meet our goal. We will continue to work on striving for that goal, but this is where we are as of end of 18-19, and that's 61% of our students reading on or above grade level on the K2 measurement.
Is there something tangible there? I mean, if in the cohort they're making that progress, and we see the carry from kinder to first, but overall it stayed, well, I mean, went up a point, it stayed going down, it stayed flat. Is there a measurable or a tangible there that we can point to say, oh, that's where the disconnect is?
Well, I believe that the concentrated effort has been around literacy at our lower levels, and you might not have seen as much growth moving from kinder to the first grade that kind of equalize that overall cohort growth. So overall, when you look at the overall numbers, we only realized a 1% gain. Last year we were at 60% overall K through 2, and this year we're 61.
Okay, you said we've got a big push on literacy, and yet for 2 years in a row, we have not met the target.
No, we are way behind the target and have a lot of work to do in that respect. We're seeing positive trends as far as growth, but not the type of growth, significant growth to meet the target.
Do we have a plan, other than hopefully it goes up?
Hope is not a plan, of course. So strategically, we are focusing in on Tier 1 instruction. We also have an effort toward what are we doing to provide that enrichment piece and that intervention piece where kids are not reading on or above grade level. We also are happy to report and see that we have new adoptions that we will be implementing next year specific to English, language arts, and reading. Thank you for approving that adoption. We will have a lot of PD around introducing those new materials that we know will impact the instruction in the classroom.
Patrick, are we able to compare that, the kindergartner part? I mean, because, originally when we came up, when we started this whole process, we came up with a number. We all sat around and collaborated and came up with a number. So what I'm saying is that, are we able to compare this to somewhere else in the state and say, hey, listen, is it the same performance somewhere else or district-wise, or or did they get the same performance?
These measurements are specific to the multiple measures that we have identified as a district, specifically iStation and F&P. Not all other districts use iStation and F&P. Districts use their own methods behind determining who's reading on or above grade level. So yes, we can compare how we measure up to those districts, but they may not be using the same tool that we are, the tools that we're using.
So one of the things that I want to make a comment on, because I made it earlier, was that to somebody in the audience, but is that when we started this process, nobody else had this. So even though we're still 2 years into it, I mean, we're still looking for the procedure or the performance to get that number moving. I mean, and I know that the district is trying to move it. So, this is one of those tough deals where we get to and we're stalled out, and so I don't know how that conversation needs to go. How the original number we came up with, you know what I mean?
The original number we came up with starting in 2016-17, as you can see, the target started at 55 and ends with 1920 at 75. We've got a large gap between 61 and 65, and we've got a lot of work to do in that respect in working with our teachers and our campus leaders. We started in mid-year 2016 at 50% of our students reading on or above grade level. We're now sitting at 61. A couple of years later, which is an indication of 11% growth. We are going to keep working hard to target teachers at the campus level and working with them to implement the new material that we've adopted this year that hopefully will continue to enhance the work.
So one of the things that we know is that the kids that attend our pre-K program, where there are 800 of them, exceed kindergarten readiness at about 80%. We're only serving 800. We know that in the new program that we just spoke, that Mr. Scott so eloquently presented, we have the opportunity to free and create more pre-K seats, because we have a program that we feel works well and it's been tested, and we're starting to see what that result looks like. And so being able to and we have 2,000 plus kinder students. So knowing that we can increase our pre-K seats gives us an afforded advantage to begin to lift what this number looks like, so we can begin to drive what that kinder readiness looks like, so kids are then starting what that literacy program begins to navigate and push forward. There's work that we have to do during summer. What programs are kids getting into? What are they reading? How often are they reading? How are we communicating what that reading looks like? And there's an effort that we need to do to make that a solid push throughout our community. I've kept in my head what Mr. Kennedy has said 2 years ago in regards to what does that look like when kids have time off, and what does that lack of instruction look like, and how do we keep that instruction fluid throughout an entire year. It's something that I've kept in my head in regards to where our programming and strategy move towards. It's nowhere where we need to be, without a doubt. The goal is that 75% of our kids will be on grade level and reading on or above. It's a significant push, and there's an expectation that's been drawn, and our goal is to go after it. And we're laying out what that groundwork looks like now to really afford that piece. So to put the pieces together, when we're talking about pre-K and our 800, 80, we're actually above that number. We're 83+%, and Della, help me if I've got that number high or low. I don't think
it was
low.
86. Was it 86? We were at 86%.
86% of our pre-K kids were kinder ready. Kids coming from outside of our pre-K program, 40% in plus or minus were kinder ready. So you're talking about 86 being ready to move and navigate, and 40% of those kids coming now into kinder, of that 2,000 body, needing some support in being just kinder ready. So we know where we need to make our attack and where we need to go, and I appreciate Della Fry and her team navigating what our pre-K looks like so we can really dive deeper earlier. Part of it is as well, the challenge that many campuses will have is your best teachers. Where do you place them? Do you place them closer to the grade where kids are about to test in third grade, or do you get them down into your pre-K and kinder, knowing that you're building that foundation and building that support moving forward? That's a balance that principals take on when you leave your third grade teacher leaves, and where you need to then take your other teacher and place them out of that grade level and move them forward. It's a delicate balance that we've got to navigate, but it's one we will certainly aspire to get ourselves to.
Mr. Jones, what is your gut assessment of our station in light of your observations about where we are given the graphs?
We are reevaluating usage of iStation at our campuses. We had a recent report shared with us by Jill Rivera and the executive team that indicated that, well, that was specific to Imagine Math, but I think it varies from campus to campus, and the tools that we have available to our teachers should not be replacing Tier 1 instruction. They are in support of the work. So we are in a position right now at the beginning of the school year when all of our team members come back on board that campuses will be conducting a deep dive. It's called a root cause analysis, so they can review and dig deep with the data to see where their challenges are. I think if we survey principals, some of the comments might vary. Some are very positive. Some would like to see us move away from iStation and/or Imagine Math. It can be used in a variety of ways. iStation is a tool, and that's all it is. It can never replace teachers in the classroom, so it helps us with intervention. And what I like about iStation is that what Mr. Riddick just touched on, it gives us an opportunity to differentiate. It also gives us an opportunity to extend the learning beyond the classroom. Saturdays, summer slide issues that a lot of our partnerships have partnered with us on the work. So it helps us extend the learning, and it also helps teachers and partners differentiate the work and meet kids where they are.
I can tell you as a parent, I like our station because of that component Mr. Jones talked about. We can do it, before bedtime. We're doing it they don't like doing it in the summer, but we're doing some of it, in the summer to prevent some of that slide. It works if you work it. I think it's the full utilization oftentimes the challenge is true.
So what I'm trying to say is there's no program that we will ever purchase that will replace the teacher. So what we concentrate on is improving the delivery of instruction between teacher and student. The other tools that we bring on board are just a support to the work. And also, when it comes to this particular goal, remember, multiple measures. So it's not iStation in isolation or FMP in isolation. In order for us to meet this goal, they have to meet both, be on grade level and or above grade level, multiple measures. We've got a lot of work still to do in that respect.
So are we focusing on bringing all of the elementary schools that use iStation up to the same level, or coordinating it so that we're more competitive with these kids? So
to answer that, we will provide professional development specific to iStation and FMP. Will all campuses ever be at the same level? That's tough to say when you're dealing with teachers that have multiple, experience, whether it's first year experience or 20 years experience, so you'll have that variance that we have to deal with. But yes, we are being diligent about the professional development associated with these tools provided to our teachers.
So exciting news, whether you see it or not. We see our second graders who are ready to launch and move on. That 68% of those second graders are near hitting that target. So we see as you advance in our grade levels, you are going to get your performance and meet your performance expectations. It's early on where we lack capacity at that level because we got all our second graders now. We don't have all of our pre-K. So as we build that capacity, you'll see that backside of the early start, the critical element of what that work looks like as we still keep this student who's been with us in our system now, especially pre-K, first, second, you are going to launch and lift in a very big way. And those kids are sitting just a point shy of what that target looks like. So those kids are on target to continue and drive within our system. Now we got to get it's the next cohort year. What do those gains look like in regarding to that standard?
Questions, comments?
Any other questions for Mr. Jones on this topic? All right, moving to District Report 6B, Academic Update. Mr. Jones, welcome back.
All right, okay. Board members, in your packet, you should have some information specific to the MISD forecasting report. Please know that the teaching and learning team analyzed the results of the 2018 STAR release test that we give in the spring as a 27-week assessment. The forecast for each school with respect to its likelihood to meet the Texas State Accountability Standards. The forecast categorizes campuses in 4 groups. Strong chance, good chance, close, and not likely. We have roughly, I believe, 11 campuses categorized as close and 1 campus reflecting not likely. We continue to have struggling schools and we continue to have challenges in MISD. This means that preliminary reports and findings indicate that we will have more IR campuses coming our way. That could be as many as 12. It could be anywhere. It could be as many as 10. The official report will come out mid-August. With all that being said, the preliminary reports also show that we are improving as a district overall. Last year, we were rated a C district. We are predicted to be rated a C district again next year. The specific number associated with that, last year we were rated a 72. Overall, we are predicting to be rated a 75. So overall, as a district, we're seeing improvements. And as far as specificity is concerned, when you start looking at the individual domains, there are 3 domains. Domain 1, student achievement. Domain 2, student progress. And domain 3, closing the gap. We're showing overall district improvements in all 3 of those categories as well. So you ask yourself, okay, how do we improve as a district overall, but possibly we'll have more IR campuses than we had this year? Just remember that when it comes to accountability system, elementary schools are rated on STAR only. Secondary schools and districts are rated on STAR, graduation rate, and CCMR, college, career, military readiness. And we are continuing to improve in those areas overall. This is where we are. We are going to dive deep into the data with campuses when all members get back with us. We've already started conversations with principals that came back this week, and we are determined and positive that we can overcome this.
When will we know for sure
mid-August will be the official report coming from TEA. I believe it's August 15th. I might be off a day or two.
August 15th will be the approximate date that you will, these are just projections, but you'll have the actual numbers at that date from TEA.
Yes.
Okay.
So it could be your forecast.
Yes.
From low at one IR campus.
The stall forecasting, we use multiple forecasts to help us come up with what that landscape looks like. Likely there are going to be more than the one. Based on our internal assessment, this is what it looks like. So close could mean you are a 60.
Yes.
And could be a 59 or be a 61. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And 60 is the line?
60 is the baseline for the D.
Yes.
And we will see campuses that evaluate there. So as a district, you can see the system is moving itself into a better place. We're that close. We are that close. We have year one, we focus financially. Year two, we put all our systems in place. We have now year three, knowing that we have all those things built in. Can we now then pull where we need to go? And that's the challenge of the message that we'll be taking forward. We know what, we built the how, now it's the understanding of the why. And so you have documents that will help you see and shape where we sit with primarily our elementary campuses.
Some of our campuses are specifically struggling and having challenges around Domain 3. Domain 3 is specific to closing the gap, specifically with our student groups, and it specifically gets into meets and masters. So are we getting more of our kids to move in the right direction towards meets and masters on the STAR assessment?
Any other questions for Mr. Jones on this topic? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've already covered 6C, the committee's report, so we'll now turn to District Report 6D, financial update. Ms. Moss, anything for us?
These are report only. What you'll see from staffing, innovation, and financial, we yielded our time to the facilities report. Unless there's a question that someone has out of those areas, they're report only.
Is that true for 6E as well?
Correct, innovation as well.
And 6F?
Correct, and staffing.
Okay.
Just as a point of clarification, is the same, it appears to me that the same board staffing update that's in section F is the same as the consent agenda. Is there a difference? I gave you the
All right, well then we're now do our discussion action items. 7A, Lone Star Governance Board Quarterly Self-Evaluation. Well, everyone looks forward to this. All right, if we go by the past rules that we've kind of settled on, that if there are 4 or more that have agreed on the score, then that's the score that we'll accept, unless there's a particular point of clarification that would change that number.
Mr. Rick, Dr. Davis, I just wanted clarification on accountability 1, because it seems to be the one we were the most all over the place. I was under the impression from Mr. Murray's email explaining why we didn't hit that number. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So if we go down the list, we're all agreed on Vision 1, all agreed on Vision 2, all agreed on Vision 3, all agreed on Vision 4. Accountability 1, we have majority at the 4 level. Accountability 2, we have 4 5s. However,
is that where it says co-led or no co-led?
I guess the question I have on accountability 2 is, in order to go up from a 0.5 to a 1, the board must track the average annual cost of staff time spent on governance. This includes any time spent by staff members preparing for, attending, and briefing. We have not. Is that correct? Okay. So we'll stay at 1.5 and hope we can do better next quarter. On structure, we're nearly unanimous on a 4. Advocacy, looks like we're...
Why are you so, what are we?
On advocacy, I've got us as not reaching 9 yet, because in order to reach 9, the board has hosted, and the board members have led or co-led at least one training on Lone Star governance for its community during the previous 6-month period. In other words, they want you to do this twice a year. And the last time we did it essentially was in connection with educating potential board candidates. And so I've got us at a 3 rather than a 9. Okay. We're all agreed on 10. So with that, the total score would be 66.5. Looking forward for next quarter's targets. What?
That's how convenient you had 60.
Yes, if you just look at my column. Now, looking at next quarter, we're all agreed on Vision 115, all agreed Vision 215, all agreed Vision 310, all agreed Vision 4 at 5. We have 4 12s on accountability 1. We have nearly unanimous on accountability 2 as a 5.
The lowest one, though, this last quarter, is there some mechanism in place for measuring to get us out of that, about measuring the value of the time?
So right now we measure the amount of time we're putting towards producing documentation. The next factor would just be to take the daily rate of that individual and that's putting it together, and then times the amount of time, and that would give you an idea. The piece, though, is that multiple people are touching the document, not just the person who's compiling it. So keeping up with all the other multiple touches from others who are putting together. So for instance, the staffing piece, that's multiple people in the HR department, and Mr. Bailey is putting the documentation together. So it's feasible, but one would give you an idea. All the other touches could then start to track. We'll learn as we come into this next weekend through our Lone Star governance training, a district that has a spreadsheet that's tracking what that looks like, that we can then begin to dive into and see is that the tool we want to think through.
The one problem I have with that, when you talk about your complex matrix to be able to account for all those dollars, is all the time we're going to spend on doing that when we could be doing education stuff, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
And so that's my one argument with the Lone Star governance is you do almost as much tracking time as you do education time in a lot of ways. Especially with this coming up with the amount of money that's spent on the reports. Anyway, Mike.
Well,
Is there any way to come up with a consensus? Because you're right. I mean, if you get into the definition of it, every time somebody coughs and says, hey, I mean, technically you're going to want to charge time to it or whatever, but if you come up with a consensus and say, hey, listen, on this department, we come up with this number,
for the fee, in essence?
Yeah, for the fee, in the sense if you got 10 people working in the department, we'd come up with this number, and then even though there's one person kind of working on it, pulling information, 10% from here, 5% from here, and come up with a consensus and just to agree to charge that or to show a number, because typically it takes this much time, and say, okay, this is what it is. And
I can't say that that's not the way, but I will tell you that one of the things as a team we've got to focus in on is not just the producing, but what does that producing actually cost, and is the board getting the reward out of the knowledge and information, and does that change behaviors? But we'll come up with a dollar amount that associates with the time so that you're able to see a balance between it's costing this much to produce this.
Yeah, I think that we ought to reserve judgment on how effective it is until we at least see the first report and look back annually and say, well, there may be some real information that we get based on, oh my gosh, we had no idea, and cause us to rethink some of this stuff. I think that's the purpose behind this element. All right, moving on, structure. It looks like we have a majority of 4 there. Advocacy, a majority at 9. And as it should be, we're unanimous on unity.
If we don't
10.
have a meeting planned in the next quarter, can we even meet at 9? Is that on the books that we?
What are you referring to in particular?
And advocacy, to get from 3 to 9, we'd be in the same spot as we were last time because we don't have the COVID training.
We could, it's conceivable that we could do it in the next 2.5 months. It's at least a target.
Yes.
All right, so with all that said, then the total for that is 85 for next quarter. That's our goal. Okay. We good to move on?
Yes, sir.
All right, 7A, that was 7A. 7B, TASB Board of Directors endorsement on page 433. The short version, I think, is there is a single candidate who's willing to serve as a Region 18 candidate for the TASB Board of Directors. That candidate is the incumbent, Steve Brown. His biograph is included in our packet. He is an educator. He's been one all his life, and so he has requested our endorsement so that he can qualify to be a candidate for re-election. This is an action item.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. Murray, second by Mr. Trischetti. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, and then last action item, 7C, delegate Chapter 49 authority on page 438 of our board packet. And you need to be sure and...
Just real quick,
go ahead.
A motion and a vote on according to report.
Yeah, thank you. We need to vote on our grading system that we went over.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Bishop, second by Mr. Kenny. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. It's unanimous. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Reddick.
Yes, thank you. All right. Now,
Every time I see this number, every time. I'm a little nervous.
all right, this is 7C. Okay, Ms. Moss, there you are. Thank you.
Mr. Davis, trustees, Mr. Riddick, this is just one of our formalities annually. The board has to delegate authority to the superintendent for Chapter 49, as we know it to be this year. I did put an estimate of what I thought our recapture would be at the time. That's our latest number that we have. I think at the end of the budget workshop and for the budget, we were right around 117, 118. Our values have gone up. The latest values that we received from MCAD had our minerals at 95%, and overall we had increased as well. So our latest calculation was 125. We will receive our certified values by the 25th. I did get some preliminary numbers, which In talking to Jerry Bundick, the chief appraiser, he's saying that those numbers should be our final numbers since the day is the 22nd. So he knew we had a board meeting and he went ahead and sent those to us. Have not had an opportunity to run those through the template to see what that would do for us, but this number should go down some.
Should go down some.
Yes.
Okay. From the 125 estimate that you brought.
What if we don't authorize Orlando to pay?
Now you're talking.
You got a problem with TEA?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Orlando does not look good in orange.
Yeah, we'll have to increase the budget on legal fees, I'm afraid. All right, if notwithstanding the frustration that this is the law, if you are so inclined to move for this authority to be given to Mr. Riddick, please note on page 438, the required language in the motion is set forth on that page.
2019-2020 year, we delegate contractual authority to obligate the school district under Texas Education Code 11.1511C4 to the superintendent solely for the purpose of obligating the district under TEC 48.257 and TEC Chapter 49, subchapters A and D, and the rules adopted by the Commissioner of Education as authorized under TEC 49.006. This includes approval of the agreement for the purchase of attendance credit. So moved.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. Bishop. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed? All right. All right, there was 6-4 and 1 abstention by Mr. Trischetti. All right, that concludes all our action items now. It is 7:42 p.m. and we will go into closed session in accordance with section 55.071 through .074 of the Texas Government Code, section 551.076, 551.0821 through .084 of the Texas Government Code. It's 9:17 p.m. and we are emerging from closed session, and we have nothing to take up from closed session, so we are adjourned. Thank you very much.